Ah, my Blue Path students. Welcome aboard. Please come in and take a seat. We have quite a lot to discuss and I have been bursting at the seams to get it all out. I'm not going to make a secret of this. Blue Path is my favorite area. I always love inventive artwork, abstract creations, and clever ARG mazes. Innovation in format and visual and auditory language is always cool to me. I'm very passionate about that. But we all know where my roots come from, and where the roots of this entire field's current power and notoriety comes from. Stories, characters, and an upfront, personal, engaging presentation of conflict that feels too close for comfort. That's what we do here. Movies, novels, and TV shows being given a first-person video game approach and character-to-audience immersion factor rules this field. Blue Path is the truest adaptation of traditional storytelling media to the internet's innovative abilities. On the Red Path, creators focus on engaging an audience member through gameplay and art that must be interpreted. Thinking and intrigue usually precedes feeling with red material. On Blue Path, it's the reverse. We are directly pulling people in at a much more human level and then intriguing them with what's inside the world we've opened. It's our job to take a TV show and rip off all the borders so that its content, characters, and events bleed directly into the audience and our reality. No more will we allow stories to be at a distance as a massively advertised work of fiction. I'm going to repeat what I told the Red Path class because it's absolutely true here and necessary for understanding our purpose. From the craziest of web series to the most expansive alternate reality games, there is a hardcore, steadfast principle that can be found in operation: the aura of reality. Our field is very different from most entertainment in that when we play pretend, we go all in. We usually do not advertise our projects as works of fiction or entertainment, even if it's obvious that's what we're doing. We're not making movies or TV shows or games. We are making immersive, engaging stories that have a full sense of the platform they're being shown on and the audience who is watching. Watch a Netflix original and you're seeing a story about characters who have no idea they're being watched in a world that is completely ignorant to us, and taking place in a world that has absolutely no influence on it from being hosted on a streaming website. Watch a YouTube series and you're seeing characters who, in most cases, are completely aware of you and the website that they're uploading to. They know they're uploading to YouTube. The audience and the platform are part of the fiction, and by extension, the internet as a whole is the fictional world in which this all takes place. Have you ever been to Universal Studios and taken part in a ride or attraction led by a park employee playing a role, acting as if they were in the fictional world built around them? Do you remember being treated as if you were legitimately part of the event going on? That idea is the entire conceit of our field. We're the Universal Studios of the internet. Now, where the Universal Studios attraction metaphor begins to break down is in your chosen form of story. And for us to get into that and figure out how to tackle an approach for your idea, we need to explore a very important concept. You very well could go all in with a main character who uploads videos or writes updates and knows that they're on YouTube, or Twitter, or Tumblr, or wherever, and are completely aware of their audience. You might also be trying to tell a strict, found footage type of story, where the person uploading material found the story contained in a form of media and is sharing it with us. In that case, the main characters of the story the uploader is focusing on may or may not have awareness of the media they're being recorded in. That would depend entirely on the type of story that you're telling. The absolute best example here is Marble Hornets. Jay Merrick, the protagonist, spends most of the story uploading footage of his investigation into the Marble Hornets film project. He is always aware of the audience watching him on YouTube. He is always aware of people reading his messages on Twitter, and the majority of the content that he uploads is footage that he just recorded, which means the story takes place in live time and is set in our reality. Jay Merrick as a character has what we'll call first-degree awareness. Now, if Marble Hornets as a web series only involved Jay uploading the old footage from the failed student film Alex Crayley made, the story's focus would be what happened on that set, and the characters there would have third-degree awareness. They are fully aware they're actors on the set of a student film, so they behave like it and would never be aware of the YouTube audience or Jay. They only exist within the confines of the found footage tapes until Jay introduces them during his own investigation by contacting the actors in the present. But if that's third-degree awareness, what is second-degree awareness? That's when any character in a form of media inside the story has awareness of the character who knows about us, the audience. There's a current example of this going on right now in the form of Pets Cop. The uploading character, Paul, is 100% aware that he's posting videos of the game to YouTube. Paul is a first-degree aware character. In the game he's recording for us, which is the story we're focusing on, the characters appear to be somewhat aware of Paul. Tool is communicating with him in a manner suggesting that it's not speaking generally to the player or player character, and we even have moments of Tool being hijacked by a character that really seems to be trying to tell Paul something directly. Therefore, characters inside the PROECTS game can be considered second-degree aware for now, because they're aware of their own world and the uploading character. Now this is just a bit confusing, and I know that, so let's do a very quick review summary. First-degree aware. These are characters who know about the audience and exist in live time alongside us in their alternate reality. They're the ones who upload videos, make tweets, post blogs, pictures, and documents, and are completely aware of the websites they're using and us, the attending audience, who treats them as if their story and characters are real. Examples are Jay Merrick in Marble Hornets, Jeff, Evan, and Vinny in Everyman Hybrid, and Noah Maxwell in Tribe 12. Current popular examples include Stan Frederick and George from 70 Prod, with George being the most concrete example of a first-degree aware character. In fact, let's go ahead and make him the absolute poster boy for this setting right now. His entire mode of operation is living the first-degree awareness method of storytelling. Second-degree aware. These characters are contained inside of media that an uploading character has found or is engaging with. They are aware of the media they're contained in, and they know they're being watched, played, read, or heard by the uploader character. It's the same relationship between a first-degree aware character and us, but now the first-degree aware character is in our shoes. Examples of this include Ben from Ben Drowned and Tool from PROECTS, or whoever is using Tool to speak to Paul. Third-degree aware. Characters with awareness in the third degree are aware of the situation in the media they're a part of and the story or world of that media. These would be characters who are actors on the set of a TV show, documentary, or movie, and characters in a movie, show, or video game who know they're in a fictional creation, but don't directly know the uploader and don't try to address them. They break the fourth wall, but they cannot make direct contact with our uploader character. Basically, a third-degree aware character can see that their world is contained inside of a box, but they don't know who's looking inside. Their awareness is in the fabrication of their world, but not who's watching or playing around in it. An example would be the casting crew of Alex Crayley's Marble Hornet student film and the tapes that Jay uploads. They're playing the roles they have in Alex's movie, but are also actors who talk about the situation and are recorded during, before, and after shooting scenes. Unaware characters. This is exactly like it sounds. They're just characters in a fully contained story who have no idea they're part of something fictional or fabricated. The only time you'll get this is if the uploader character sits down to watch a TV show and just, records it for us. It's a movie within a movie, or a show within a show. The scale of awareness is based on one factor and one factor only: the degree to which a character is firmly aware of you, the audience member, and not just in a sense that something might be watching us. It's a scale of direct awareness. The first-degree aware character knows about us completely. There's only one relationship movement between us and the uploader. It's a connection from point A, us, to point B, them. A second-degree aware connection needs to move 2 points to be in direct contact with us. They're aware of the uploader character, but they need to gain the same awareness level an uploader character has if they want to reach us. They're on point C and would need to go to B and A to be completely aware. Third-degree characters are on point D. They know their world is fake or they're part of something fictional, similar to point C, but they don't know the person watching or interacting from outside their world. A point D character needs to gain that knowledge and make contact to become point C. From there, they need only 2 movements to reach us, so in total, they have 3 degrees of movement to jump. And if the character is part of a fabricated creation and has no idea they're in a false world, well, they're unaware. They don't even make the scale of awareness. So what's the purpose of learning all that? It gives you a layout of all the ways you can deliver your story and understand connections, or lack thereof, between the audience and your characters for an immersive approach. But is it even necessary to have a scale of awareness? Aren't there any series out there who just upload directly and don't try to make some kind of connective tissue with viewers or the website that they're on? Yes, there are. And while the examples I can think of do a great job of presenting their material without creating immersive atmosphere, none of them are actually going for stories told by first-degree aware characters or involve recordings that are meant to reach an audience. Most of the material I've seen presented without immersive context is pure red path stuff. Abstract art style work that often requires no dressing up because of the nature of the message. The content is so powerful, it needs no outer story to explain its appearance on a platform. Don't Hug Me I'm Scared is the best example. As I told your peers in the Red Path class, I can tell you that it's not always necessary to have yourself covered on who uploaded this and why for your idea. Yes, this is one of those rare events I mentioned earlier where you don't completely need to have this answer. Sometimes we're just not going to get lucky enough to find a story or world build based reason to explain. An idea can be so powerful on its own at times, and the content and everything in it so good and thoroughly backed by writing, that at the end, you've just got to shrug and say, you know what? I can't handle the immersion aspect of the platform I'm using and my upload method. It's not possible without me forcing it. And that's quite alright. You don't have to go all in by actively spreading around word of your project as fiction or an online art installation. Merely let it be, have it exist as itself, and viewers can speculate. Maybe they'll fill in the blank with something genius that you didn't find as the connection and it can be adopted as canon. But if your main character is recording things on their own and expecting people to see the film, or the character was recorded on videos they didn't intend people to see, or they ended up in a position where they could never get the footage out, it's much more powerful to have an immersive setup giving us a reason why we got that footage than just putting it on YouTube and saying nothing. Making us question the reality of your setup directly interferes with our suspension of disbelief. Leaving out immersive context would equate us to TV shows trying to pull off a found footage series, but not providing any setup to explain where they got the film and what they know about it. It would be like watching all the raw cuts from a documentary without narration, backstory interviews, or information slides. As said in the previous video, in the field of art, the only rule is that there aren't any rules. You do not absolutely need an immersive setup or a first-degree aware character, but would it help you to have it and add a layer of fun and believability to your story? I certainly think so. It takes a really strong web series to just walk up, sit down, and be found footage or first-person storytelling without any context. The only series I've ever seen come close to this is Night, a sleepwalking journal, and it gets away with it by virtue of being really good from the start and carrying on without breaking the mood. And still, Sleepwalking Journal bills itself as a fictional project in such obvious, glaring ways that it can be placed well outside the label of being a no-context approach. We do have context. It's a fictional series made for entertainment put on YouTube by its creator. We can see that. Generally, you should have immersive context for your work in the field of linear storytelling versus abstract art projects. If you're making a Marble Hornets, you pretty much need a J. Merrick. If you're making a Don't Hug Me I'm Scared, you just need to make a damn good show. And if you're making a Marble Hornets and don't want to go for the immersive angle at all, you had better be ready to advertise the hell out of this thing everywhere you can and hope viewers don't ask a bunch of questions, because not only did you just chop out a major reason that people are attracted to this art form, you might have a lot of plot holes and broken logic to jump over as a writer. Immersive context and set dressing is what puts the reality in your alternate reality experience. We're not just indie project television, we are much cooler than that. So, what do we actually do with our immersive context awareness scale now that we have it? We use it to figure out our method of execution. Some of you might have this cut out for you already and knew where you were on the scale as I introduced it. Maybe you're making something very much in the style of a Slenderman series, which of course means you've got a story that plays around first-degree aware characters who record, upload, and talk to the audience, and it takes place in live time. That's really easy stuff. We've got so much material we can visit as reference for how it's done. Again, 70 Broad is my poster boy for this right now. Maybe, though, you're like the West Records, and you've got a big idea for an awesome story featuring characters who record stuff they're doing, but they're not in any position to upload or interact with any kind of audience. So you create a channel run by a first-degree aware character we don't meet or hear who uploads footage they have containing the story. The characters in the story from the recovered videos are third-degree aware, knowing only that they're recording events they're part of, documentary style. It's not possible for these characters to know we're seeing the footage. Between 70 Broad and the West Records lies your answer to putting the story on the internet with the right amount of immersive context. You can go from full first-degree approach to making something that a curious person found and put online for us to look at. The second approach, taken by the West Records, is your ultimate cheat for making a tough concept transfer work. It will include having truly solid writing behind how the uploader got a hold of what they found, why they chose to upload it, why they care at all, and any actions they take. But if you can figure that out, you have a pretty free license to make whatever you need to and upload it under the context that it's part of the footage that was found. Just, be convincing, and keep on checking to make sure it doesn't feel forced. If you don't quite believe it yourself, listen to your doubt. The amount of presence your host character needs to have depends entirely on you and their character makeup. They could just appear in text for their video descriptions and the About section. They could actually use their voice like Paul in Petscop, or they can make full appearances on camera. The amount of inclusion the story seems to draw on them to have and their personality will determine the approach you take. This goes just as well for anybody who won't be using video for their project. Even if you're doing things entirely by text and maybe images, it works out the same. Don't have a direct character? Use a host character. And if you don't want to use a host character because you feel the idea isn't quite right or might end up being overdone, we simply turn our focus away from the person who found something to somebody that knows them. A brother, a sister, a boyfriend or girlfriend. Somebody with a reason to be concerned or pay attention to the odd thing preoccupying the mind of someone they care about very well might investigate on their own. It might be harder to convincingly make a person who just knows whoever made the odd discovery our first-degree aware character, but depending on how you craft the situation, the relationship between the witness and the one obsessed with the mystery, and the personality of the witness who takes the story online, you can pull this off. You don't even need your first-person aware character to upload something because they've got a mystery to crack or help to find. Maybe they found something they think is hilarious or beautiful. It's a little bit cliche if you end up using a host character that uploads based on them saying, "Hey, look at this creepy thing I found," but if you spin it right, you can get away with it. Like we just saw in PROECTS, for instance. From the voiceover in the first few videos, we know that Paul is addressing somebody in particular that he's been talking to. They would want video evidence of the creepy thing he found. So of course he would take to YouTube to upload it, because sometimes sharing video files can be really difficult and annoying. And based on the mystery of PROECTS, Paul and his friend might want it to be public in case anybody who sees it has information to offer. But Paul as a host character has a believable setup we learned about through convincing delivery. We didn't just see a video description saying, "This is for my friend because he doesn't believe me about this creepy game I found." So you can use the host character cheat if you need to, but you had better give that entire layer of the experience just as much attention, believability, and convincing character writing as you do with everything else involved. When you're playing the immersion factor, you've really got to sell it. Always ask yourself, is the uploader's reasoning for their behavior strong enough that I would believe them? Because as much as you want the actions and events in your story to make sense, it will only be as strong and believable as the characters involved, and no amount of immersive context or immersive design will save bad writing. Suspension of disbelief begins with setup and carries through on the power of one of the most important aspects of Blue Path material, characters. I bet you have an awesome concept. I'm thinking you have an idea that is so cool and intriguing and it's going to be great to finally put on film. And you know what? You probably do. However, anyone who works in movies, TV, or literature will tell you that a plot alone does not sell. And if they don't tell you that, a writer with an actual career will take a moment to slap that person, and then they'll tell you themselves. It's quite possible that the most easily overlooked aspect of bringing an idea to life is character. Getting hung up on an idea that enamors you is very, very easy to fall into. We're people who ordinarily focus on big, weird concepts by nature. But a story is never quite as powerful as it should be without characters to play it out. Empathy is the baseline for our storytelling to be effective. We must create a human connection, especially when we're dealing with an immersive approach to create an alternate reality experience. We need to not only believe in the person going through the events, we need to know who they are, how they are, and have an attachment to them. This is especially crucial if your story has terrible things happening to good people. If there's going to be a body count and you want us to genuinely feel the pain, shock, and horror with every death, we'd better care about who those bodies used to be. Likewise, our protagonists ought to be someone we want to spend our journey with and can relate to in some form, even if it takes them a little bit of time to express themselves. Getting to know Jay in Marble Hornets took a while, but from what we saw of him the entire way through, we knew he was a character we could support who was only trying to be helpful and figure out a very odd mystery. I can think of 2 web series right now that ruined themselves for me because of terrible characters. I'm not going to name them either, because I'm not here to do any shaming. One of them I watched from the start and cared about for a while, but began to lose steam hard as the main character just became more of... Okay, well, to put it frankly, he ended up turning into more and more of a loud, angry asshole with only negative things to say. The character from the series I didn't like from the start was also an angry asshole with only negative things to say, just not as loud and confrontational. And it's not that characters like that can't work, because they absolutely can. We've seen Noah Maxwell in Tribe 12 descend into being this way a lot of the time, but it's not his entire character, and he is still Noah from the beginning. He's just a little bit crazier, more cynical, much quicker to anger, and far more sarcastic now. He's evolved, or devolved you might say, but he is still somebody that we like and can relate to without forcing ourselves to do it. Events that he has suffered through haven't completely replaced his personality with cold feelings. Your main character or characters are going to go through some hell. A lot of you already know that. Some of you are going to subject good, innocent, optimistic people to the suffering Olympics. And that's a good thing. As long as you make people we care about seeing survive, even if aspects of their personalities are unappealing or even repugnant. What matters most in this territory is building a cast of believable, realistic people we can relate to and have at least some endearing qualities, so we can actually empathize with them and care if they end up impaled on a pitchfork or eaten by monsters. We need to enjoy who we're going to spend time with and experience the weight of their demise or pain, while we also experience the joy they feel at making a discovery or escaping with their life. Even if one of the characters is an asshole, we need them to be a likable asshole. You'll never ever need to go as hardcore into building characters as you would on TV or in a movie. We're not in that game. We make alternate reality experiences. We're going for characters who are people with specific types of personalities. Considering most people you get involved in your project will not be actual actors doing this for a career, you shouldn't have too much of an issue with this. You need people who can simply adjust their personalities a little bit and exhibit behavior, attitudes, and dialogue in line with the personality traits they need to exude while still being themselves. Not people who are putting on a whole new persona. You need a friend who's convincing enough to help you fake an elaborate story to another friend for a joke, not Leonardo DiCaprio. Once again, I'm going to reference the West Records as a good example. The characters in here are believable, enjoyable, and realistic. They act like people. They convince you they're people. They feel natural and organic. You have met these people in your life. I know you have. And I think I said that exact quote in my night vision video on them. It's amazing to see them in a web series, being natural and taking you on a journey. Vinny from Everyman Hybrid is another good example. He has been through some of the craziest, most absolutely horrible things. And while his personality and behavior has definitely been affected enough to warrant a radical character change, he's still a person we believe in and can see ourselves interacting with. Even Evan, as lively and intense as some of his scenes need to be, is still somebody that we believe, especially because he laid the groundwork for behaving radically in a negative way by exhibiting that personality type at the beginning, acting in positive, playful, extroverted ways that reminds us of people we might know. Equally important to get right are your villains. It's very easy to overdo it with a villain. I have seen somebody go the B-movie route or full-on Disney characterization before, and it really ruins things. Alex Graley in Marble Hornets made for an excellent villain because he was a person who just had some seriously twisted ways of dealing with his problems. He was an average guy who was clearly very pissed off and well under the influence of a monster. He acted like himself gone bad. That's the key thing here. And because he was an incredibly easy character to believe in from the start, turning on that poison personality effect wasn't hard. Monsters, paranormal forces, and people who have been mentally or emotionally broken on the level of seeming possessed, or, in Evan's case, actually being possessed, can get away with being heavily characterized. We know why it's happening. They're not normal, so we should not expect normal. It's not an excuse to get all campy and cartoony, and I heavily advise you don't try to bring the long, sinister, drooling, evil edgelord material of popular creepypasta stories into the mix. But in terms of pushing your character's behavior when under the influence of something evil or showing off actual monsters, you can let loose a bit. Just remember, the scariest thing about a really intense monster delivering a threat to you is when they're believable, because now we're accepting their personality and the promise of doing evil things as real. If I believe in something as insane and intense as Habit, I will be afraid of him because I'm actively feeling that he's real, so I accept that he can and will choke me with my own intestines. A baseline of reality and believability whenever possible, as much as you can. That's how you pull off characterization, even for the most over-the-top Halloween movie-level creations. Get me to accept what you've built, no matter how messed up and unrealistic, and you will make the effect land. But aside from behavior and dialogue, which we can all anticipate as markers of what's believable for a character, what else do we need to focus on so the audiences accept the people in our work and empathize with them? Motivation. Actual, tangible, convincing reasoning for doing something. I need to be entirely convinced of the motivation that someone has to do or say anything in a story, and everybody who works in a creative capacity knows this. It's why there's always a joke in comedies about directors where an actor asks them, "So in this scene, what's my motivation?" A character can't do something simply because you want them to in order to make a thing happen. Everyone needs a valid reason for their actions because, again, believability. People always act out of motivation. They have wants, they have needs, and they're going to do something about those using behavior that aligns with their personality and in line with what we know about people. Under the circumstances of personality, setting, situation, and events in a story that have preceded the situation, we must believe the actions taken by characters and not only know what they are, but understand them and be convinced that they feel that way. Let's go back to Marble Hornets again for reference. You can find motivation for everything in here. Every character has a reason to be doing what they've chosen to do. Jay has clear motivation to look for Alex. Tim has clear motivation to hunt down Alex. And Hoodie has clear motivation to antagonize all three of them, even if it takes a while for us to see that. Alex also has very clear motives for attacking everybody involved in the movie. His main motivation is the faceless monster that's following everybody around. Speaking of motivation and characters, here's a curveball for you. Have you considered yet why I included Spectacular Organic as an example of Blue Path projects when you were deciding what path you were on? It's because, while unconventional, Spectacular Organic is a story-based, character motivation-driven series. Sometimes a character can be a whole group, like a company. Sometimes a character can be a location. In Spectacular Organic, we are dealing with a group, which is obviously the corporation itself, and its motivations are pretty clear. It wants to engage people and draw somebody in for a vacation. We know better than to trust that their vacation is anything less than vile human experiments or something equally horrible, because the behavior and personality of Spectacular Organic tipped us off pretty well. But we know they're looking for people in a story that's only just begun, and the first character taken in from outside, lottery winner number 00616, is obviously part of a growing storyline, having suddenly been elected as the new product developer upon arrival. I brought Spectacular Organic into the room to show that while we can still have first-degree awareness characters, we don't actually need a solid representation of that character or anybody at all to tell a story. There's obviously no custom live-action footage for Spectacular Organic, but it still presents a character that we can understand in a story that is in development. Spectacular Organic has a fair amount of red path mixed into its blue, so this is more of the purple approach blending both project areas, but it's an excellent way to demonstrate that you can roll out a storyline-concentrated concept without even a camera or microphone. And even if the company is a weird character, we know who they are to enough of a degree that we become intrigued, and from what we know of them, we are worried about subject 00616. Spectacular Organic's motivations don't seem very trustworthy. Let's take a second to review what we've learned up to this point. There is, after all, quite a bit of upfront education on the Blue Path. When executing an idea for a story-based project, you can upload wherever you like with or without context that explains how the media telling the story got online, but immersive context that builds connective tissue between your story, its characters, the websites involved, and your audience will make for a true, alternate reality experience. The immersive approach has shown very strong results for engaging an audience and providing a more powerful, personal storytelling result for participants, who are made to feel as if they're part of the action. Taking an alternate reality experience approach requires figuring out how to adapt your idea according to the scale of awareness. You can have the main character or characters of a story on the level of first-degree awareness, which means they are aware of you, the audience, and record and react to events in the story they're in during live time. Everything seems to happen in our reality at the same pace of minutes, seconds, and hours. If this approach isn't going to work for your idea, you can always use a host character on the level of first-degree awareness, who is relaying media they came across to the audience. That media would actually contain what you wanted to make, and the characters inside could have third-degree awareness, the more uncommon second-degree awareness in which they know the host character is watching, or they could be entirely unaware and just play out the story. The only difficulty with this approach is having solid writing behind the host character's behavior, how they discovered the media found, and why they're uploading it for people to see. Events and cool ideas are always fun, but the characters involved will be what gives your story life and makes the audience watch. Believable, relatable, natural, realistic characters who we can empathize with and understand as people are needed in your story. We must care about our main character, even if they have aspects of their personality that aren't positive or attractive, and motivations for the hero, their allies, and the villains must always be known and convincing under the circumstances presented at all times. You can have intense, wild, and weird personalities for characters, but they must exist on a foundation of belief in their reality, or at the very least, the suspension of disbelief. Never get so crazy that we're reminded of a cartoon or a parody. A character does not necessarily need to be on camera or even use a microphone. They do not even have to be entirely relatable or immediately understood, but they must present an intriguing, convincing personality that earns at least some of your suspension of disbelief. Spectacular Organic is weird, but it does its absolute best to provide footholds of reality and understanding to get us on board. The main line of teaching in the points covered so far is the immense importance of reality in designing your alternate reality experience. We're playing in a land of fiction that must convince the audience it's real. We need to pull as many tricks as we can to get them invested like we're a TV show or movie, but while playing up the immersive atmosphere that will bring them into the story. Then we need to keep them on board and make them attached to our characters, so they experience real empathy during the adventure. And even when we bring out the monsters and really messed up, crazy, unrealistic things, we need to hold on to as much reality as we can to trick them into accepting what they're being shown. Immersive context and approach, characterization, motivated behavior, and presentation all go into the act of making the viewer believe us. That's what your viewer wants. Make them believe. They know it's fake, they know it's fiction, but damn it, they want to feel the rush and experience the adventure as fully and deeply as they can. Bring them to the roof of a skyscraper and hold them up over the edge. Threaten to drop them to their death even though both of you know there's a rescue net just 20 feet below. Make them feel emotions for people they don't know in situations that aren't even real. The foundation of belief. That's what we've just gone over setting up. And now that we've set our foundation, we can proceed with building the story itself. Strap on your construction gear and follow me. We're going to learn how to raise all this concrete and metal into a working theme park attraction. It's been said by many writers that a story begins where the normal flow of life ends. You have a character going about their usual activity, or carrying out plans they have, and something goes wrong or hints that it's about to make everything go wrong. Life gets disrupted. There's a weird, uncomfortable, or harmful thing that occurs, kickstarting a long, complicated journey of problem solving. As creators, we have the option of starting shortly before the point of trouble occurring, right when it happens, or after it's come up and the adventure has begun, which is known as starting in media res. A web series in the traditional Marble Hornet style will typically begin right where something weird has occurred, or the beginning of an event that allowed weird things to occur. It can be tough to start right where things went wrong. I can't imagine the first episode of a series opening with somebody recording their kitchen faucet gushing blood all over the place. You could do it, but it might be more comfortable to have somebody behind the camera saying, "Okay, so I was in my room just getting ready for bed when I heard the kitchen sink come on, and now I live alone, so that shouldn't have happened." And then they'd proceed to tell us how they went to the kitchen, saw something impossible, and needed to get the camera so their story would be recorded as fact. Then we'd creep into the kitchen and see the flood of crimson pouring into the sink like a vampire's water cooler with a broken tap. Your choice of starting point will rely entirely on how valid the reasoning is for the main character to be filming. We need to believe the reason for having the camera turned on at the exact point it was when we begin. It's not good to have a case of somebody just getting lucky by filming at random and then catching sight of a paranormal event. Just as you need to think of a reason for a character putting something online, you need to have believable motivation for a camera to be rolling or a microphone to be on. Jay's character in Marble Hornets didn't have tapes showing the operator that were filmed because somebody was just hanging out in the woods. The camera was on because it was being used to record a student film, and in the process of making that movie, footage was caught of a monster. The camera has an alibi. This policy also goes for Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, videos, photos, audio. Anything that was recorded or in use for a project that just so happens to incorporate something freaky needs an alibi. I was taking photos of my cousin's birthday party, and I keep seeing this creepy man in the background. I was helping a musician friend record something because he doesn't have a microphone and picked up this weird sound halfway through. I'm a real estate agent assistant who takes video tours of new listings, and I found a really odd thing in this new place I had to record. I brought along my camera to record a camping trip with my friends, and things got messed up at the cabin. Give me an alibi. Tell me a convincing setup for why and how you came to record something. When it comes to pictures and text documents, like posting to a blog, you don't have to dig that deep. But if there's a camera involved, make up a reason I can believe that it was with a character at the scene of the crime and might have been recording already. And again, this really falls in line for websites too. If you make a Twitter account for a character one day before things get weird in their world and they start tweeting about it, I'm not going to believe you. I'll know you made the Twitter account just for the story. I need to believe the character and see linear events with reasons and motivations, not happy accidents and lucky coincidences. There's your immediate 3-question setup. What level of storytelling and degrees of character awareness do I need to use for my project? When do I come into the story? And do I have believable, valid reasons for the camera, microphone, or whatever else to be on the scene or already recording? Let's make up a few examples to explore what we've learned and see how it all works. Just a few imagination exercises. In a small town much like yours or neighboring your town, there lives a 19-year-old gas station attendant named Aaron. He's only working here during his 1-year off break between high school graduation and his first semester at college. Currently, it is the middle of September. He's worked at the little blue gas station down on the corner near his house all summer, so he's got a really good handle on how things go. He's been working long enough for all the magic and optimism of being a new employee to wear off, leaving him just as unenthusiastic and miserable as most gas station attendants. In your story, Aaron encounters a stalker that is some kind of dark, ominous paranormal being, and his investigation into the stalker leads him to discover horrible, evil secrets about his normally boring town. The stalker shows up at the edge of the back parking lot every night, just standing there, as if waiting for Aaron to leave after closing up. He never seems to have a car with him, and whenever Aaron walks away or turns around for a moment during this encounter, the stalker disappears. Calling the police, or anyone else for that matter, will not help. You have decided that Aaron is going to be a classic first-degree aware character, recording and uploading content in live time to an audience that he knows about and openly interacts with. You might even be playing Aaron. Maybe you're a bored 19-year-old who wants to do something cool for the very first autumn that won't be disrupted by school and classes, and you just happen to work at a gas station, which is where the idea for the series came to you. Let's face it, the back parking lot is really creepy, and you hate seeing people hanging around when you close up for the night. Maybe it's not the biggest, brightest flash of inspiration you've ever had, but the idea of somebody going through this gives you chills, and you're in a really good position to pull this off. You have a friend who already agreed to help you and everything. So, we have the idea, the character, the location, and the scale of awareness locked in place. Now, when do we begin the story? How do we put it online? And how do we justify our method of capture and uploading it? You've decided that you want to get this on film. You have a pretty good camera and you're a film student, so any opportunity to make things is good. As Aaron, a first-degree aware character, you'll be supplying an audience you know about and talk to with video recordings of the freak at the edge of the parking lot. Your motivation for getting him on video is clear, but your location and reason for being there don't lend any help in justifying why you're recording with such a nice camera. Aaron as a character has plenty of reason to record what he's been seeing, but we need to get him to the point of using that nice camera you have to share what's happening in a way the audience can believe. It needs to be realistic enough for the situation and the character involved. We also need to walk this out with a starting point that makes sense to everybody. If Aaron went into the parking lot one night and saw this guy, he wouldn't immediately whip out his phone and start recording. That makes no sense. He wouldn't know anything about the paranormal nature of the man yet, or that he would keep appearing. Aaron would just be recording a stranger who hasn't said a word to him. He would have no believable motivation for using his phone camera. So we can't begin right where things got weird. It's not possible to justify Aaron having any recording of that first encounter. But as this event continues, you can bet he'll be inspired to pull out his phone and catch what's happening, because there will be more than one encounter, and he'll experience enough to know this guy disappears impossibly fast. We're going to have to begin in media res, as the action is taking place after the inciting incident that began the whole adventure. Aaron will come to the audience after going through this for about, let's say 2 weeks, when he's really freaked out and needs advice about the shadow person stalking him at work. Now you could always begin showing the audience Aaron's ordeal with video taken from his nice camera, which he definitely would start bringing with him in hopes of catching the stalker, but you could also go for an approach that lays out the groundwork of reality a bit more. If you chose to begin with footage from the nice camera, Aaron would need to either appear in it himself explaining the trouble he's in, like George in 70 Broad, or he would need to use the Marble Hornets approach by running info cards that we can read as a summary of events. We would need context. Do not just drop the audience into some video of a guy in a parking lot with no setup to let us know why it's creepy. The difficulty in this approach is that it screams, "I'm a web series" from the rooftops. Good for making sure people don't buy into this too deeply and know it's fiction, but bad for the level of immersion and reality we want in our alternate reality experience. What can we do to make this a bit more realistic? Let's add proof of the claims that Aaron is making about this guy showing up so often in the parking lot. Show Aaron using his phone camera to record the guy through a window inside the gas station market. Show us an actual trip into the parking lot recorded on the phone camera too, with Aaron yelling to the guy asking what his deal is. Let's see what he caught on film before the nice camera footage, as long as it's very clear why it was recorded. And if you really want to dress it up even better, instead of putting that all in one video, upload each night of activity as its own video around the time of recording. Make us believe that Aaron is uploading to his own personal channel to keep track of this from his phone. Put contextual information from him in the video description. Dress it up as the personal public record of an average guy experiencing the paranormal, and less as a new web series. Give us that crappy phone footage letting us know something is happening, Aaron is recording, and he has genuine motivation to bring a good camera from home to get better footage. Bonus points go to anybody who would even give Aaron a Twitter or Facebook account, as if he was an actual person, and make him share his uploaded videos on those sites. Do what you can to trick us into believing in the reality of this person online, and not only will you get more of the audience on your side, you'll give yourself more room to play around for recording events, interacting with viewers, and providing character perspective and behavior without the stress of having to film all of it. Now, as for why he's uploading, we have a few good reasons the audience can trust. First, the appearance of the channel Aaron is using and the behavior and personality that he's exhibiting reveal that it's a personal account. This easily could be considered a YouTube channel that he made simply to comment on videos, make his own playlist, and have a subscription feed. But now he needs it for documenting his own weird life events, and he proves how much he's not used to doing this by using cell phone video uploaded on its own. He could keep the videos to himself, sure, but he might want them in a place that's easy to access so he can show friends and family the weird thing happening at work. Finally, because Aaron knows how freaky this guy is and just how impossible his movements are, he needs other people to see this. Anyone at all who can offer advice or an explanation would be appreciated. And really, this is just way too weird and scary to keep to himself. as long as he only writes in video descriptions and comments about what he's experiencing, when it happens, and what he thinks instead of saying, "Hey everybody, look at this crazy thing," then his motivation for needing people to see is actually very clear and something we can empathize with. We're a social world online. Whether it's a cute picture of a kitten, a meme that was actually funny, or disturbing evidence of the paranormal, we have a need to share anything we've seen that had an effect on us. It's only going to be obvious that you're trying to rope people into a web series if you make it obvious. Lay down the groundwork for believability and reality first. Make your job easy. And there you have it. A story you want to tell adapted online in a believable way, featuring a character whose motivations and personality will be clear with immersive context and setup. After the first few videos, you can take this plot wherever you feel it's leading you. Just keep the guidelines of having a convincing reason for the camera to be on and characters to be motivated as you go, and you could end up telling us a very cool story. If you came here from the yellow path, by the way, you might also sense that what we've just done is taken the Slenderman series formula and given it as much original idea overhaul as possible. You can apply the techniques and concepts I taught you in that video to this example and see how I made them fit. Now let's take a sharp turn into a new example that's going to illustrate different tactics and help a good amount of you who aren't seeking video work, but still want to tell a linear story that deals with character and intense experiences. Not everyone is going to have the passion for film, the ability to wield a camera, or the resources to edit videos when they come to this field. Some of you, I imagine, are only artists and writers. You could put things on YouTube if you tried, but it would take a couple of weeks figuring out how to adapt your skills for it, learn programs, get the hang of everything. And even then, you don't know if you're going to be reaching your audience. And that's okay. You have just as much power to captivate people with your method of storytelling. Let's say that you're fascinated by found footage. You're an artist and somewhat of a writer, but by no means are you good with a camera, and you don't even know if you've got a video editing program on your computer. The idea of somebody coming across lost media or a secret story is awesome to you. It's really cool, engaging stuff. You want to tell a story just like that, but you don't know how to do it with your skill set, and you don't know if people are even going to care. Let me tell you something. Plain old illustrated storytelling works. It has its audience, its champions, and its broadcasting system that gets new people to know about good creations. My friend Riiser from the Webcomic Relief covers webcomics extensively. His field is entirely about static artwork that delivers a story, and that field is, in my eyes, actually more widespread and celebrated than ours. You know what else I could tell you about Riiser? He is a major fan of found footage and everything we enjoy. He loves spooky, creepy, alternate reality game style work, and I imagine that many of his viewers would as well. But don't just take my word for it. Here's his.
Hi, I'm Riiser from the YouTube show The Webcomic Relief. I read and review a lot of different comics, most of all webcomics. In case that you are unfamiliar with webcomics, first of all, what? They're comics made by your average Joe who has a story they want to tell. The beauty of webcomics is that everyone can make them, and so can you. And if you think that webcomics are not proper media to convey your ideas with, need I remind you one of New York's bestsellers of 2016, Sunstone, started out as a webcomic. We've long since passed the time where only comics like Control-Alt-Delete and Penny Arcade are able to make it big and even make enough money to live off of it. Making stories with static artwork can be an amazing thing and has a lot of untapped potential. Like, say you want to make a creepy ARG-like story. Well, you're already on home field as you're making a story on the net. You can add in URLs, and if you learn a little coding, you can even hide various links on the page. An example of this can be like what Homestuck or Ava's Demon does that makes excellent use of the fact that it's a comic made on the internet to its advantage. You can also just check out the webcomic called Bong Chon Dong Ghost and see why a horror comic can be super effective with a little coding magic. Seriously, everyone who recognizes this image will tell you it's the scariest thing ever. And if you don't want to go that far and just feel like you got a really good horror story you want to tell, well, think about it. Because the images you're working with are static, it's far easier for you to hide various information in the background. You got complete full control of the thing you're doing as opposed to a video where the perfectionist in most people want to make sure each and every frame is on point. Heck, you can even do what one of my friends did and make it so certain information only gets visible when you alter the colors of the page. Working with static imagery opens a bunch of new and interesting ways to play with your audience and scare them in all new ways, and trust me when I say there's a severe lack in good horror comics out there, especially Western ones. I love me some found footage, horror and ARG probably more than most, but I like thinking outside of the box even more. And I feel that's what really put things such as Marble Hornets and Everyman Hybrid on the map. They dared to be different and new. So maybe using a not as frequently used medium would help making your product different and new, I don't know. Lastly, know that you don't even have to be able to draw to make a story with static pictures. Just imagine, say, Jimmy uploading his holiday photos onto his blog and he later finds out that in the background is this scary figure. Kinda like how Slenderman got started, Or how about, say, Linda, who finds a camera with a damaged SD card in it, and she chronologically uploads pictures as she decrypts them and they'll tell a super creepy story. See? I just came up with this on the fly. The potential is endless. So go out there and get your spook on.
Thank you very much, Riiser. Bringing our worlds of art together. That's what we're about to do. We're going to combine chocolate and peanut butter right now and give you, an artist with no camera, but a big idea, the way to get your story told. The beauty of this approach is that, unlike filming a web series, if you have an idea for something and you can draw it, you can do it, no matter how crazy. You won't have a lot of trouble getting out the kind of story you want to tell. Depending on the wraparound story you make up, you can also get away with plenty of art styles or, if you don't think you're too great, skill levels. Because remember, it's the found footage approach you want to take here. Your art will take the place of the footage, so now we're telling a found media story. For this execution, you require a first-degree aware character to be the host. Whoever is finding the media, that's your uploader. They make the blogs, the pictures, perform any scans of the art they've come across, the whole deal. This person is the intermediary. The degree in which they'll be involved in the story of the media they find, or just share the discovery with us, is up to you to find out. You can hit this from a lot of angles. I can already think of about 3 of them. Your uploading character could be receiving pieces on purpose from a mysterious stranger that illustrates a story or a message of some kind. They could receive something from a dead person, making it more of a classic inheritance tale. Or, the really fun approach, they could find a twisted tale in a place they never expected to. I think it's best to go with our third option. Inheritance tales work out for realistic setups, but depending on how you spin the found media aspect of coming across something crazy, you can be just as believable. We're going to have a mix of 80s throwback and modern possibility for this one. The story contained within the found media can be whatever you like, but for the wraparound plot involving the uploading host character, I'm taking the wheel. Our main character is Jessie, a 23-year-old woman just getting on her feet with an illustration job at a company that designs graphics for t-shirts and geek topic items. If you've got a local pop culture, internet humor, and novelty item store, she's working at a place that probably made some of the merchandise. Being an artist and a fan of odd, old, and underground things, Jessie has decided after settling into the new apartment she's picked up to take this job that she's going to check out a local comic shop. It's an old place that's been around for a bit, sells records, toys, and vintage items as well as comics, the kind of place where you just might find anything at any time. It's during her visit that she finds a really odd comic in one of the boxes that seems to have been printed by somebody in their basement or something, trying to pass themselves off as an actual publisher. It's old, even if the art style isn't. Jessie's description of the comic and its art style would rely entirely on what your own illustration powers are, because the comic is, of course, the story that you want to deliver to the audience. Jessie is only the carrier. The cashier knows nothing about the comic Jessie has found. He's just as mystified as she is about where this came from, but agrees that it looks like a really independent comic. Jessie pays for it, takes it home, does a little bit of research, and finds nothing. The publisher, the names for the writer and artist, they don't come up online at all. Or maybe they do. Maybe that's part of your story and you have information you can plant online for it. Maybe Jessie doesn't look it up right away, but readers will, and they'll find the associated story pieces. Perhaps you want to put pieces of the comic storyline on websites that are found through looking up its creators. But that's all in the air and at your sole discretion. What isn't optional in our hypothetical idea is what Jessie does when she gets home. After looking through the comic and being absolutely horrified or completely captivated by what she finds, she goes on Tumblr. Because yes, of course she has a Tumblr account, we just got through talking about her character type. She's an artist by trade working for a pop culture merchandise shop after all. And she uploads a long post about her discovery, including pictures of the comic in question. How you would like to tackle the first post is up to you. You could do a quick summary post showing off a few shots of the comic as an item, followed by a careful, methodical page-by-page gallery of the whole thing for people to read. Or you can just do that right off the bat. Personally, I would take the first approach for the sake of realism. Shoot a few pictures with the phone, make a summary post along the lines of, "I just found this thing," end it with a promise to upload the whole deal in a later post, and then make that post with as much detail as you can for each page. If you have a scanner, use that scanner. If you don't and can edit your own documents to look as if they were scanned, go for it. If you're not confident in that option, hold the best photo shoot you can with a good camera or your phone if it's all you have. The methods available for following up on the first comic would depend on the choices you make about whether or not you can look up information. If the artist, writers, and publisher have a web presence of some kind, you could hide the rest of the comic pages around, have viewers find them, tip you off on Jessie's Tumblr, and then have her upload a mirror on her blog under the pretense that the press is dead and the owners can't actually be found or contacted. You could also have Jessie get lucky and come across a reader following her Tumblr who found an issue of the comic needed for the storyline. Jessie herself could go back to the comic shop, look around in other stores, fake a journey to the area where it was apparently printed, look in the comic shops in that town or city, and find a missing issue. You can do a good deal of playing around with the idea of finding more pieces of the comic storyline, figuring out whether its publisher is alive or dead, where the artist and writer went, who they actually are, and the background of all these things. Just keep on telling us a really cool mystery about this comic while writing the story in it and doing the art. The impact the comic, its story, and her investigation into it has on Jessie would be entirely up to you. I have my own ideas about where this could go, but I like some of them a little bit too much to share. The point of this hypothetical is that you can pull off an immersive series, even in the found footage vein, without resorting to video. A static visual artist can provide just as much of a mystery using a host character as somebody wielding a camera. And if you're really gutsy, you could potentially get away with using Jessie herself as the creator of the comic from the start, putting it online. You'd have to do a lot of writing work to figure out how to give her and this new webcomic of hers a more intriguing angle, but it could be done. And if your project is audio-based or only involves writing, no problem. You can use the same approach I've just outlined. You don't absolutely need to be found footage. You can always be found media. As long as the storytelling you perform in your work is engaging and convincing, and you've incorporated everything we've learned about character motivation, believability, and realistic immersive context, you can pull it off. Switch out Jessie for a college radio station DJ, substitute a comic book for a CD or an old cassette tape, send someone to the library and have them discover a book that shouldn't be on the shelf. Take a person's life and throw something weird into it, then give us convincing reasons, timing, and placement for that person to upload evidence of what's happening to them, what they found, or what's going on with somebody they know. And as for what some of you might be wondering right now, can you get away with all of this through a first-degree aware character who doesn't interact with the audience and won't provide immersive context? Yes, you absolutely can, and people have done it. We'll be going into more full detail in our next Blue Path video, but the short answer is that when you take this approach, you're following the adage that what you don't write or show is just as important as what you do. Not supplying information isn't necessarily an act of omission due to laziness or poor writing. It can be your decision to keep something from the audience on purpose while you know full well what you're doing and have all the answers. An entire backstory of seriously convincing, realistic motivation can be written by you for the uploading character or whoever made what's appearing online. And as long as that full breakdown lines up perfectly with the pieces of your story that are public, you can not only get away with keeping the uploader or creator character hidden, you can lead the audience to figure out who they are and why they've chosen to go through all of their actions, why they have the footage or media, why they recorded it or made it or how they found it, why they chose to put it online. Build a good case with all the evidence you have to put on display, and you'll make a good detective out of your audience. There's only one serious risk with taking this approach. It's often used by new web series creators who are trying to make that creepy, mysterious, intimidating know-it-all character. If you open a video with a bunch of black and white footage, scary porcelain dolls and masks, and text that says, "Follow me, I possess the key," or some absolute nonsense like that, it's been done by precisely the type of new creator who is missing the focus of the lessons that I brought up earlier. Have characters we can relate to on some level and engage with, even if they're seriously weird, and create something realistic enough to get us on board. This is an alternate reality experience you are crafting, not pieces from the cutting room floor of an early 2000s B-movie. Yes, you can introduce a series with an uploading character who does not speak, does not engage the audience, and is completely hidden. But if you come right out of the gate with them uploading things that look like rejected to the ARC videos, you're going to push away new viewers because you've given them absolutely no foothold to be comfortable, intrigued, or empathize with your media crafting character. Successful villains and creeps know how to trick people into coming through the door and getting themselves into trouble. They're not going to stick their nose out like, "Boo, I'm a scary monster with arcane knowledge, subscribe to my YouTube channel." Nobody can take that seriously. Come on now, you know better than to do that. This kind of no context given, kaleidoscope of weird and creepy, spooky mystery man approach only works for artistic statement projects from the Red Path, and even they'll have a hard time sticking the landing. It's a miracle when somebody gets it right and makes you care. That's why the series 2H32 is awesome. But here in the Blue Path, we deal with a much more emotionally intriguing, down-to-earth approach to storytelling with a focus on storytelling. If you're after really mystifying oddball stuff like 2H32 over a beginning-to-end plot that anybody can follow, what you need is Red Path training. I'll say this much. If you are absolutely, positively dead set on being some kind of blend of To the Ark and Jack Torrance, I feel as if the only way to pull it off with Blue Path levels of engagement is by giving the project a host character. Make somebody who found the stuff, or is getting it sent to them. Give us an accessible human angle to enter. Give us an empathetic hand to hold, or provide us with something familiar enough to engage while having some sense of what we're dealing with. A foothold for the viewer. You always should have a foothold for the viewer. They need to understand enough about what they're seeing to care that something weird they don't understand is interfering with the whole piece. Otherwise, it's abstract art from the Red Path that you're making. And if that's what you want to go for, I have a video for it. Come on over to the Red Path. I'll get you started. That's going to wrap up our first class on the Blue Path. There is obviously much to talk about and go over, but it's never good to overload people in the very first class. What we've gone over today should be enough for you to examine the idea you have, apply concepts you've learned, and see if what you've built so far is working out. You can also begin crafting your plan of attack, knowing the skill of awareness, immersive context, and methods of story delivery online, regardless of whether or not you have a camera. Next time, we'll be getting into plotting out storylines and exploring character interactions, clashing motivations, and visiting examples from those who came before us. Before I let you go, I'd like to announce that I now have an official subreddit dedicated to the channel and discussion of everything on it, related matters, and of course, the topics being covered right here. Go to r/Nightmind and talk about your ideas and progress with other viewers who are taking the journey to become creators. I'm even an official mod and will check in to see how things are going. And if you're somebody who enjoys Discord servers, the r/Nightmind community has one, so you can interact in live time. These communities are official. Consider them the public meeting grounds for Nightmind enthusiasts. If help is needed for any branch of your journey, you're likely to find it here. Thanks for joining me in the dark again this evening. Once more, I'm Nick Nocturne, and I'll be seeing you again real soon. Enjoy developing your ideas and discussing studies with your fellow students. Class dismissed.